let's get into Fani Willis and what is going on in that situation. Now, man, listen, Fani Willis. Okay, so everybody knows that Fani Willis decided she wanted to prosecute Donald Trump for election interference. Okay, that happened. We know that happened. Then Michael Roman had his attorneys file a motion to disqualify the district attorney of Fulton County and the person that she appointed as the special prosecutor, right? So that got us to all of the coverage that we've been doing these last couple of weeks. And, the motion to disqualify came with a lot of stuff. They had a few hearings. They had a lot of testimony, about 2.5 days worth of testimony. And then it was up to Judge Scott McAfee to rule on the matter and say whether or not he would disqualify Fani Willis and Nathan Wade from this case. Essentially, if you disqualify Fani Willis, you disqualify the entire Fulton County District Attorney's Office, and it would have to go, and the case would have to be passed on to the state prosecution board that would then distribute it to another jurisdiction. So, Brother Scott McAfee is an appointed Superior Court judge, right? He was appointed by Brian Kemp, right? And he's up for re-election, and he has to be elected. So let's go through some of this. So let's just give the overview. The overview of the situation is Scott McAfee said his ruling was he denied most of the motions, right? He denied most of it, but he gave them a little sliver of victory, which to them, to the defense, it wasn't really a victory. But he essentially ruled that Fani Willis either had to step down and take her whole office off the case, or they had to remove Nathan Wade on his own and get him off the case and replace him with somebody that's not an interested party and no romantic relationship with her or anybody else involved in this case. So, of course, it didn't take long. Nathan Wade actually did end up stepping down and resigning. Now, if y'all remember a couple weeks ago, when y'all first came over here and listened to me discuss this situation, after I heard all the evidence in the case, I said, Fani Willis will be fine. Nathan Wade is 100% gone. He's out of here. There's no way they keep Nathan Wade on this situation. We predicted that. I'm sure many people, I don't know if many people predicted it, but I know I did, and y'all can go back and listen to me predict it. But there was no way Nathan Wade would stand on this case. I just knew he just had too many. It was too much against him. There was no way. So, and it had nothing to do with him, whether he was qualified or not. It's nothing to do with that. So we can go through some of this here. So Nathan Wade did step down, and shout out to him for even being in the position to rack up $700,000 in 2 years. Shout out to him. So here's the overall. I'm reading directly from Judge McAfee's. He put out his, I don't know. Let me see what the official name is called. Let me read the title. There's really no title. It's in the Superior Court of Fulton County, State of Georgia. Order of defendant's motion to dismiss and disqualify the Fulton County. So this is, the order. This is a ruling. All right. And Judge McAfee, very thorough. It's 23 pages. Okay. After receiving 2.5 days of testimony during which the defendants were provided an opportunity to subpoena and introduce whatever relevant and material evidence they could muster, the court finds that the defendants failed to meet the burden of proving that the district attorney acquired an actual conflict of interest in the case through her personal relationship and recurring travels with her lead prosecutor. The other alleged grounds for disqualification, including forensic misconduct, are also denied. However, the established record now highlights a significant appearance of impropriety that infects the current structure of the prosecution team, an appearance that must be removed through the state's selection of one or two of the options. Okay, so the defendant's motions are therefore granted in part. Now again, as I tell people every week, if I say something wrong or if I say something you disagree with, whether I'm right or wrong, let me know in the comments. I'm gonna read it and we could chop it up. We can have a discussion. So this week I had gotten into a discussion with one of the Facebook friend homies, right? And now this was after I did the recap of the Ashley Merchant hearing with the Senate, and I said that Harold Jones made great points. Because he's, like I said, a shark of an attorney. Clearly, I heard him say 10 words and I was like, this dude must be a lawyer, a real lawyer, right? So Harold Jones broke down the fact that Ashley Merchant's motion was not properly written or structured, or it didn't show how there was a conflict of interest here. See, a lot of people are not realizing, and it's discussed in this Judge McAfee ruling. A lot of people are not realizing, this is the conversation I had with the fellow on Facebook, that how we use the term conflict of interest as laymen or as regular people or civilians, we are not professional law people. We don't speak legalese. The way we use the words conflict of interest is not facts. That's not the real definition in legal terms. Legally, they have to follow the standards that are set up. They can't just say, yo, you did something that seemed kind of fishy. That's a conflict of interest. That's how we regular people, we talk like that. In law, that's not what it means. To them, conflict of interest would be something like one of these people represented one of the defendants before and now is trying to prosecute them. Or conflict of interest would be one of the defendants has been campaigning against one of the prosecutors has been campaigning against one of the defendants in public. Those type of things, that's real, actual, what they call actual conflict of interest. Saying, hey, they had a relationship, that's a conflict of interest. That don't even really make sense. That's not a conflict to you. That really more so speaks to their ethics as people, as lawyers in his profession. And it's not even illegal for them to do that. It's just weird. Why would you do it as a lawyer? Why would you, give your boyfriend a job like this when you're trying to prosecute a case? It's more of a why would you do that type of thing. It's not a conflict of interest. Right. So I was trying to tell him, he was arguing with me about, Harold Jones didn't do a good job explaining that. Like he's just taking up for Fani Willis because that's his friend. I'm like, some people, you're having a closed mind when you listening to this stuff, because none of us, the person I'm talking to, I'm like, we are not lawyers. When they break this stuff down, they're telling it to you from a lawyer aspect. You should be listening with an open mind, not listening with your mind made up already and just saying you already know the answers and these other people don't know the answers. Even if you agree that they were right or they were wrong, these lawyers are still going by the law. They're using case law. That's why Harold Jones kept on saying this case law that you cited in this motion does not match up with the scenario that you're arguing for or against right here. And that's what I was trying to tell him. In law, it's not about what you know is right or what you know is wrong. It's about you properly structuring your argument to prove that you're right or prove that somebody else is wrong. If the argument is not structured properly, even if you might have had grounds to get them disqualified on some other basis, the fact that you use conflict of interest as your basis, you was wrong. That wasn't the proper, you shouldn't have based it on conflict of interest. You should have found another way. Because you didn't properly, Ashley Merchant, because you didn't properly structure your argument, you lose. That's the only way to put it. Now, like I said, I like the work that Ashley Merchant did. I think she did a good job exposing Fani Willis, which it seems to me like that's all she really wanted to do. But like I said, after I heard Harold Jones's questioning of her, I realized that motion was not properly structured for her to win that argument. I don't know if somebody else could have figured out another way, or maybe they didn't know another way to do it, so that was the best shot that they had. Maybe there is no other way, and that's the best shot that they had. But like I said, Harold Jones was spot on. There's no conflict here based on what we all know to be conflict. Now let's keep on reading some of this. And I highlighted. Let's highlight. Now, let's speak more to this because McAfee put this thing in sections because this 23-page document will be used for many years to come. And when people are going to be citing case law and they're going to say, hey, this Donald Trump versus the state of Georgia, this is what was said by McAfee. So here we go. Here's an excerpt. Disqualification of a prosecutor due to a conflict of interest is thus not a creature of statute, so much as it is a judicial remedy recognized by our appellate courts since their formation, generally on the grounds of public policy. as the administration of the law should be free from all temptation and suspicion, so far as human agency is capable of accomplishing that object. Now, what that's pretty much saying is that when they keep referring to conflict of interest, there's no black and white law against it or whatever. And that's also what I was trying to tell the guy on Facebook. There's not a law against it. It's just it looks weird. So if you can't prosecute this case without your own biases and personal beliefs coming into it, then you should step aside, because that's a conflict of interest. You can't do this impartially. You need to recuse yourself of this case. That's pretty much like there's case law to back that up, but there's not any statutes to say this is how we handle this. So that's why it goes, each judge has to make that ruling when they come into a contact with this situation. They could just follow the ruling of somebody else and say, hey, this is similar enough, and we'll just go by what these other people said. But because this Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, Ashley Merchant, Michael Roman thing is so unique, McAfee couldn't just go by these other cases. It's too unique of a scenario, so he had to write this 23-page document and give his ruling like that. Let's keep on moving along. It was some good stuff in here, man. Y'all really, if you get a chance to. Now, I'm jumping around the parts that I think jump out at me because there's important sentences within these excerpts. In this case, Special Assistant District Attorney Assistant District Attorney Wade's manner of payment is not actionable on its own. Whenever a private attorney like Wade is paid by the billable hour, a motive exists to extend or prolong the assignment. This, however, is a tension that the legal profession has long accepted. It is also the type of speculative status violation that our courts have regularly denied as insufficient grounds for disqualification, absent solid proof of some other conduct. So what that's saying is, when Ashley Merchant and all the defense attorneys kept spending all that time talking about how much billing was being done by Nathan Wade, the judge is pretty much saying that's normal legal practice. Lawyers everywhere do that. That's what they do. When you work on billable hours, your job or your goal is to get as many billable hours as possible. And it's such an accepted thing that it's not even sufficient grounds to disqualify. No, it's not even like everybody's doing it. Pretty much is what he's saying. That's what he put that in there for a reason, right? The contract allowed a $250 hourly rate, a relatively low amount by Metro Atlanta standards for an attorney with Wade's years of service, and contained a ceiling on the maximum number of hours permitted. Also, this is McAfee's justifying Wade's billing. He's saying pretty much like, let that go because he's only been getting paid $250 an hour. That's low. Honestly, he could have got paid a lot more. And that was referenced a lot in the hearing itself, where pretty much Fani Willis was like, he was underpaid pretty much. So like y'all looking at these invoices, like he really should have got paid a lot more, but I capped it at $250 an hour was the most I was willing to pay. And it just is what it is. Like I couldn't pay him. I didn't want to pay more than that. So even McAfee agrees that that's actually low. So then the next section, they went through all these trips and stuff that was taken together by Nathan Wade and Fani Willis. And what he came to was, in total, defendants point to an aggregate documented benefit of, at most, approximately $12,000 to $15,000 in the district attorney's favor. So he pretty much saying like, this is how much, pretty much because there's no documented proof of Fani Willis paying him back, they just pretty much have to take her word for it. There's no documented proof. They're saying that all of the vacations and everything added up together, Nathan Wade pretty much spent about $12,000 to $15,000 on Fani Willis in her favor, right? So they don't have proof of her paying him back. Let's keep going. So this is coming up towards the end of this conflict of interest segment. And similarly, the court finds that the defendants have failed to demonstrate that the district attorney's conduct has impacted or influenced the case up to the defendant's detriment. While prejudice is not a required element for disqualification, it is relevant to considerations of the due process and the defendant's requested remedy of complete dismissal. So he pretty much said that y'all don't have any proof for this conflict of interest thing that is negatively impactful to the defendants. And he threw this extra little piece in there that I think is interesting. He did this a few different times throughout this ruling, throughout this order he wrote up. While prejudice is not a required element for disqualification, it is relevant to considerations of due process and the defendant's requested remedy of complete dismissal. Pretty much saying, y'all figure your whole thing out, get your game plan together, strategize a little bit better. Y'all should really be going a different route with this and trying to get it dismissed on these other grounds. Like I said, it's about how you structure your argument. But he left them a few little Easter eggs like this in there. You understand?